I talked about this in a video yesterday, but I'll reiterate it. Yesterday was the craziest weekend of the entire college football season. Up until this point, the season has already been pretty chaotic, but we're really making a run at 2007 and one of the craziest seasons we've ever seen in college football. There were a lot of upsets yesterday and a lot of other teams that almost were taken down as well. Today, I'll be giving my top 25 after one of the craziest weekends I can remember. But before we get to today's rankings, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Oregon was off this weekend, they avoided a major upset, and I got them staying at number 1. Ohio State had one of the best wins of the entire season as they dominated Indiana 38-15. Entering the game, Indiana was ranked number 5, and Ohio State, well, they made him look like an unranked team. Will Howard threw for over 200 yards and had 3 total touchdowns. Ohio State, despite falling behind 7-0 early in this game, they really looked like a national championship contender over those final 3 quarters. If it wasn't for that late loss to Oregon earlier in the season, Ohio State would be the consensus number 1 team. And honestly, I know they lost to Oregon. I'm very close to putting them at number 1 because I do think they are a better team than the Ducks as of right now. I got Notre Dame making quite the jump as they dominated number 19 Army, winning 49-14. Now, I was really looking forward to this game because I thought Army, they'd make a run at Notre Dame and make this thing interesting and potentially pull off the upset. Well, just goes to show you shouldn't doubt this Notre Dame team because they are the real deal. Riley Leonard threw for 150 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the ground, Jeremiah Love ran for 130 yards with 2 scores, as Notre Dame ran for just under 300 yards with 5 rushing scores as a team. I've said this every week, I know Notre Dame has one of the worst losses among the top 10 to 15 teams in all of college football, but ever since that loss to Northern Illinois, they've been a top 3 to 5 team in all of college football. Texas wasn't necessarily on upset watch, but they were tied with Kentucky midway through the second quarter. They pulled away, and they ultimately won by 17 points. Quinn Ewers threw for 200 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile, as a team, the Longhorns ran for 250 yards and had 2 rushing scores. Texas is now 1 win away from playing in the SEC title game and potentially securing a first-round bye. Penn State wasn't one of the many teams that got upset on Saturday because they escaped with a 1-point victory on the road at Minnesota. Now, things weren't looking great for the Nittany Lions early on. They trailed 10-0 midway through the second quarter, and they were actually trailing entering the half. It wasn't until late in the third quarter when they took a 1-point lead. Drew Aller threw for 250 yards and had a passing touchdown. Had Penn State lost this game, that would have really shaken up things in the playoff rankings. Considering Penn State has absolutely no resume, who knows how far they could have fallen. But thanks to this win, regardless of what happens next week to close their season, Penn State has secured a top 12 playoff spot. Things were looking a little bit interesting for Georgia as they were tied with UMass after the first quarter and had only a 7-point lead with a minute left in the half. But they took control the rest of the way and they won 59-21. Carson Beck threw for 300 yards and had 4 passing touchdowns, while Nate Frazier led the way on the ground with 140 yards and 3 rushing scores. Georgia closes their season against Georgia Tech, and then they'll play the winner of Texas and Texas A&M in the SEC title game. Tennessee was struggling early against UTEP as it was 0-0 after the first quarter, but they scored 56 points the rest of the way and had a very comfortable victory. Nico Iamaleava threw for 200 yards with 4 passing touchdowns, while the Volunteers ran for over 240 yards with 4 rushing scores as a team. SMU just continues to win, and they punched their ticket to the ACC title game with their 33-7 victory over Virginia. Kevin Jennings continues to be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football as he threw for 330 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding a touchdown on the ground as well. We know SMU is going to be playing in the ACC title game. The only question is, which team are they going to be going against? Indiana suffered their first loss of the season as they fell to Ohio State by 23. Now, early on, it looked like Indiana had what it took to potentially take down the Buckeyes. They were up 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, and I thought they were going to be able to pull it off. But they scored only 8 points the rest of the way, and this offense that's been one of the best in all of college football, yeah, they look terrible. Now, I'm still high on Indiana. I do think if they win next week, they should be a top 12 team, but again, it's not about what I think, it's about what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks. Miami defeated Wake Forest by 28 points, and if you look at the box score, you think, wow, they dominated this game, but this was a really interesting contest in the fourth quarter. With only 1 quarter to go, Miami actually led by only 6 points, and Wake Forest had a chance to take a lead in this game, but Miami outscored the Demon Deacons 22-0 in the fourth quarter to give them this big victory. Cam Ward threw for just under 300 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns with a rushing touchdown as well. In one of the craziest finishes you'll ever see, Arizona State took down number 14 BYU 28-23. Now, Arizona State was dominating this game in the first half as they led 21-0, but they fell apart in the second half and they let BYU slowly come back in it. But still, a win is a win, and the Devils control their own destiny to make the Big 12 title game. Sam Levitt threw for 250 yards with a passing touchdown. Meanwhile, running back Cam Scadaboo had another massive game, running for 150 yards with 3 rushing scores. Arizona State now controls their own destiny. All they gotta do is win next week on the road at Arizona, and they'll be playing for the Big 12 title. With the win there, not only are they securing a playoff spot, they're potentially securing a first-round bye. Boise State nearly had the worst loss of the college football season as they escaped a massive upset, defeating 2-8 Wyoming by only 4 points. This game went back and forth, and Boise State was trailing midway through the fourth quarter. A touchdown with 5 minutes left put them ahead and gave them the victory. Ashton Jenney added to his Heisman campaign as he ran for 170 yards with a rushing score. I know Boise State is 10-1, but these last couple of weeks, they have not been playing well at all. They barely beat Wyoming yesterday. Last week, they struggled with San Jose essentially until the final minutes when they really pulled away. The week before, they beat Nevada by only 7 points. That's not a team that's deserving of getting a first-round bye in the college football playoff. Sure, they'll probably get the 11th or 12th seed, but as of right now, the way this Broncos team is playing, they don't deserve to be ranked as high as a lot of people think they do. Before we get to the rest of my rankings, I'd like to share with you guys how you can make the college football season more exciting and even win some money. I've partnered with Underdog Fantasy to bring you this amazing deal. If you download the Underdog Fantasy app and use promo code Harris, they'll match your first deposit up to $1,000. That's right, they're giving you up to $1,000 of free money. You can choose your favorite players from every game and decide whether or not they'll go higher or lower than their projections. So to add a little extra excitement to every game and win some money, make sure to use promo code Harris for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 at Underdog Fantasy. You guys can also sign up using the link in my description as well. South Carolina is a really interesting team because they already have 3 losses, but a lot of these teams in front of them keep losing, so the Gamecocks just keep moving up. They took down Wofford 56-12. Lenora Sellers had another big day as he threw for 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. He also added 50 yards on the ground with a rushing score as well. South Carolina can't play for the SEC title game, and again, they have 3 losses, but considering the playoff committee had them ranked at 18 and a lot of teams in front of them lost, who knows? I'm just saying, if any 3-loss team has a chance of making the playoff, the way things are going for South Carolina, it could be them. Clemson had an easy one against the Citadel, winning 51-14. Kay Klubnik threw for 200 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Tigers ran for over 300 yards with 3 rushing scores. Ole Miss's playoff hopes fell apart as they fell on the road to Florida 24-17. Jackson Dart had 400 yards of total offense with 2 touchdowns, but he had a number of costly interceptions that really hurt Ole Miss in this one. If the Rebels just would have won out, they likely would have been a playoff-bound team, but after these losses, I'm not quite certain where they stand anymore, and it's not looking good. Speaking of not looking good, Alabama's playoff chances probably took a massive hit as well as they fell on the road to Oklahoma 24-3. Now, at least the other teams that got upset were pretty much keeping it close. Alabama, after the first quarter, never stood a chance in this one. Their offense was terrible and their defense was terrible, and like with a lot of other teams, their playoff chances almost got completely evaporated. Now, I will say, because they are in the SEC and they are Alabama, I'm not ruling them out because the playoff committee, they could pull something and I wouldn't be surprised. Iowa State needed a last-second drive to pull out this victory as they took down Utah on the road, winning 31-28. Rocco Beck led the game-winning drive with just a few minutes left as he threw for 250 yards with a passing touchdown. He also added a touchdown on the ground as well. With Iowa State, they're still alive in the playoff hunt because they're still alive in the Big 12 hunt. If they win next week, I think because of all the tiebreakers, they'll be playing Arizona State in the Big 12 championship. And if they win that, they have a chance chance to make it to the college football playoff, potentially even as a first-round bye. Tulane was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. UNLV went on the road and took down San Jose State 27-16. Hajj Malik Williams threw for 130 yards with a passing touchdown. Meanwhile, on the ground, Jaden Thomas ran for 150 yards and had a rushing score as well. UNLV is still alive to playing the Mountain West title. I don't know what the tiebreakers look like, but there's a chance they can get there, and if they take down Boise State, depending on what happens around them, there's a potential chance that UNLV can get an automatic bid as well. After looking like a lock to reach the college football playoff, BYU has now dropped back-to-back games in devastating fashion. Jake Retzloff did all he could as he threw for 300 yards with a passing touchdown, but they just couldn't contain Arizona State in the first half, and that's what cost them the game. Now for BYU, there is still a couple crazy scenarios where they could play in the Big 12 title game, but they're not mathematically eliminated, so at least they got that going for them. Illinois won a thriller on the road at Rutgers, winning 38-31. With only 10 seconds remaining, Luke Altmaier threw a 40-yard touchdown pass, giving Illinois the victory. For the game, he threw for 250 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Illini ran for 200 yards with 3 rushing scores. Illinois is not alive in the Big Ten title hunt at all, but this has been a fantastic season for them as they're 8-3 on the year. Poor Army, I believed, a lot of people believed, but their Cinderella story came to an end as they got embarrassed by Notre Dame 49-14. Bryson Daly did all he could as he ran for 150 yards with 2 rushing scores, but Army's defense just couldn't contain Notre Dame at all as they allowed over 450 yards of total offense. Now, they're technically still alive to be the Group of 5 representative as well. They're still undefeated in conference play. They're going to be playing in the American Conference Championship game, and depending on what happens in front of them, who knows, Army could still be a player to reach the college football playoff. After a rough stretch, Kansas State bounced back nicely, dominating Cincinnati 41-15. Avery Johnson threw for 150 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding 70 yards on the ground with a rushing score as well. Running back DJ Giddens ran for 150 yards and had 2 rushing scores. Memphis was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. We're going to close out this video with Texas A&M, who lost a heartbreaker in overtime to Auburn 43-41. Now, Texas A&M had this game, but they just couldn't pull out the big plays in overtime when needed. Now, there is still a crazy scenario in which they could potentially get there. If they beat Texas next weekend, they will be in the SEC title game where they're going to play Georgia. Now, if they win those 2 games, they're going to secure an automatic bid and reach the college football playoff. But having to beat 2 top 10 teams in back-to-back weeks, that's going to be a daunting task. But Texas A&M, they're still technically alive for the college football playoff. Well, that wraps it up for my top 25. Was there a team I had ranked too high, or a team I had ranked way too low, or was there a team I didn't even include at all that should have been ranked? Whoever it is, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm, and it helps share this video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.